Well, hello, everyone. This is Dr. Isabelle Amigues, your friendly rheumatologist and host of the Unabridged MD podcast, where we bring you hope driven by science. Today, we have a treat. We are going to talk with Dr. Chrissy Davis-Allen, who is a doctor of naturopathic medicine. So if you are like me, from 10 years ago, where I didn't really know what naturopathic medicine is, you are in for a treat because it is important for you to understand what it is. But more than just naturopathic care, what I love about Dr. Chrissy Davis-Allen is that she is a healer at heart. And the reason I know this is going to come directly from her. You're going to listen to her journey and how she has train, what she is doing, and what she continues to learn. Dr. Chrissy Davis-Allen, thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure. I have to say that I love your journey. I love the journey in what you're learning constantly. You're like, when I look at what and who you've become, right? And I really want the auditors to understand that, but I can only say you are a true healer, and it doesn't matter from where it's coming from. So do you mind sharing with our auditors why I think that way, right? Like how did it all start?
So I began as a pre-med student, as all of us have, right? As you have as well, so you understand this. And I was lucky enough to be able to go abroad to Costa Rica in my third year of undergrad. And that pretty much changed my whole perspective of the world. I was able to study in the rainforest with a tropical ecologist and also do an herbal garden with a senior community there. And so we worked with growing herbs in the garden for medicinal purposes and teas and things. And so it really opened up my mindset a lot into how the rest of the world is looking at, what medicine is and how they're using food in a different way than what I was, used to. And so after that, I kind of went on to do the rest of my program. And then I decided to take a little time off in between and work in a lab. And I was approaching the time I worked with cholesterol. I think that's important. And so it was at the time when I was working with the Veterans Administration, and the cholesterol and heart disease was a really big issue, which it still is, but it was at the beginning of the research that we were starting to do on lipids. And so I was learning a lot on the medical side. And I had to decide. It was a 2-year job. I had to decide, where do I go next? And so I started to look into different programs, and I applied. And in my research, I came upon naturopathic medicine, and it just seemed to speak to my heart. It talked a lot about nutrition, and it talked a lot about herbs and different things that come from the rainforest, which I was able to learn and that I could utilize in my practice. And still, in traditional naturopathic medicine, you're going to a medical school where you're for 4 or 5 years learning basic sciences, anatomy, physiology, histology, all those things, all the ologies. And then you also study about nutrition and herbal medicine, homeopathy, hydrotherapy. So if all those terms are a little bit foreign there, I can explain more if you want. But and then you take your basket full of all the things that you learn, and you use it as an individual care modality to each person you meet. We also do counseling, which I feel like is a really important part of my practice, and a part of probably every doctor's practice, I believe, too. So after that, I got through my 5 years, and then I was in the Pacific Northwest at the time, which is an amazing place to learn. We had outside of our school a forest where we could take a walk during, in the state park and learn about the Native Americans would come to our school sometimes and teach us about the herbs that were in our environment. So we learned about, if you got stung by a nettle, you could use what was in the forest, plantain, right next to you to treat the stinging. So we learned a lot about how the earth works and how we could use those plants in our practice. So that was pretty amazing, but I missed home. So home for me is the Northeast. So I went back, after school to start my practice. And one of my biggest passions is integrative care. And so I wanted to be able to work, with other types of practitioners as well I believe that all of us have a special gift, and it's amazing when we work together what we can do. So I worked alongside a chiropractor, a massage therapist, osteopathic doctors. There was acupuncturist. So there was a lot of us in those 13 years back east that I worked with. And I was able to be more of a general practitioner because at the time, 20 years ago, there weren't as many of us around in Connecticut at the time. So it was pretty amazing. I mean, I got to see so many different types of people. And one of the places that drew my heart in the most was in the mental health area and arena. The state hospitals at the time were starting to close. And there's a lot of people in need of services, outside of just traditional care. And so they would trickle into my practice little bit by little bit. And it was lovely to be able to learn with them how I could help them alongside with their traditional doctors. And so they became a huge part of my practice and a big part of my heart. And so many other people there that just came in and they said, what else can you do for me? I'm doing this. What else can we do? And so I grew a pretty nice family, I like to call it, over there. And but we were ready for a little change after a while. We have 3 kids and we wanted them to see the world. So we moved out to Colorado and we became on a journey of moving for the last 15 years. And in that journey, I've met up with a lot of other practitioners that I've worked with that also were in the mental health field or in the physical health fields, like massage therapists and different things. And so it's been pretty lovely to be able to connect with so many different people that have a similar perspective and that are really looking for a holistic way of healing. And just the patients, of course, they always, have my heart. So it's nice to meet so many people in your journey. So right now I'm, expanding more on the gut and mental health aspect of my practice and moving it online. I'm actually practicing in 2 states. I'm back in Connecticut and in Colorado. And it's been great to, integrate the 2 areas of the country, which are very different. Even though it's one big country, they're very different. But I've been enjoying it. Yeah, for sure. Doing virtual and in-person care and seeing lots of different individuals. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. I, as I'm listening and reading your bio, what strikes me is this clear will of constantly improving how you offer care to other people, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing that I thought was really interesting. So you start with pre-med, then you discover naturopathic, right? Like the naturopathic care. And then as you're discussing with other practitioners, you decide, okay, I'm going to learn functional, I'm going to learn Reiki, right? Like you even learn Reiki, you're now a Reiki practitioner. Can you tell us a little bit more about the reason why you started learning Reiki, for example, and what is Reiki, maybe for people who do not know what Reiki is?
Yeah, so it's more working with energetic practices. So I do massage therapy as well, so that it's considered under the umbrella of that. Yeah. But it's more working with a person's energy. I think all of us have the ability to heal ourselves, right? I mean, inside of us. And because we are, trained in a little different way, aren't always aware of that. But Reiki, what it does is really show us our own innate ability to heal. And it's so lovely because we can focus on these different areas of our body. And, all you do as a practitioner is really help guide that person to start to understand and see how their body, talks to them and then listen to their body, which I think is a huge part of what I do too, is education. And so yeah, the energy aspects, like we always need to talk more about that with people, right? Because I think that's something we don't talk about as much, but we all have. So it's kind of that, like, you know, nebulous umbrella, like what is that exactly, you know? And it really just has to do with us trusting ourselves and trusting our gut, we always say, and that, you know, comes from that intuitive ability that, you know, we know what's going on with us. And so when someone comes to me and they say, you know, I just don't feel that that's something's not right. You know, I'm sure all of us as doctor always hear that, you know, that little statement that always says that I don't feel that something's right. And they can't always explain that, but through practitioners like Reiki therapists and things like that, we can help to center them, to start to listen to that voice a little bit more. And then they can say, oh yeah, something in my heart doesn't feel right, or something in my gut, right? And then we can start to have conversation around, you know, not just the physical aspects of it, but maybe emotions and different things that could be trapped in there, to start to move through that journey. And I think, you know, you and I had discussed before how that can be so profound in someone's journey, is really coming to grips with their power as an individual to heal themselves, and also a release of some of those things that have been stored. So Reiki's really good at that. And that's definitely a big underbelly, I think, of the practice, is being able to empower people to understand how strong they are. You know, I mean, wow, like we've survived for so many generations, right? You know, and so it's about kind of just figuring that out.
I love it, and I'm so in agreement with you. Actually, I think that people are like surprised that I would say I'm totally in agreement with you, because I'm Western medicine trained, and I do love Western medicine. Like I want to be very clear. Like patients that come to my practice, I definitely offer them medicines that work super, super well. I love my medicine, and I love rheumatology. And I fully agree with you that it is our own self who heal. So what I mean by that, for example, and I explain this, is that when it is autoimmune, it's rheumatologic, our body is creating inflammation. The body is creating inflammation to heal. And somehow the balance goes overboard, and instead of healing, they're actually causing damage because it's too much. When I give a medication, like a Western medication, I'm actually decreasing that inflammation, but I'm just helping the body. It's still the bodies of my patients who are healing. I'm not, like, the medication is not healing them. It's helping them heal, right? So it's a tool. It's just a tool. And I do think that the most profound history of remission in my patients are a combination of Western medicine and empowerment of their own healing. And that empowerment might come from me talking with them. I mean, them talking with me, actually, more importantly, them talking with me, or them allowing themselves to heal, like agreeing, seeing that that is possible, right? And it's this switch, which I'm sure, I mean, I would imagine you get with Reiki, naturopathic medicine, and it's basically the switch I get with Western medicine. But really, is it really the medicine that I'm giving them, or is it the, how do you call that? Authorization for them to heal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, I authorize you, you deserve to heal. Which I find so profound. And as you mentioned, you said, like, the intuition of patients, they know what's going on. Like, our patients know better than anyone else. And we are in a world that doesn't listen to intuition anymore. Like, we're always in our head. We are not so much in our bodies. And probably we're better probably in Colorado than other states, I would imagine. But it is such an interesting such an interesting concept to me, to really think it doesn't actually matter what the technique is, as long as the idea is to heal, as long as the idea is to offer our patients a way to empower them towards healing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think so. I mean, I think sometimes they just need, like you said, the authorization, the permission, the ability to know that they're capable of doing that, right? And like, and I always say, I'm just going to give you some road signs, you know, to help you to find some of those answers too. And then to, you know, it's homework a little bit, you know, there's some homework that you have to do with what we do. It's not like you're just like walking away. There's, you know, of course there's medication to take, but, you know, there's some soul searching to do. You know, there's a big plan of things that we can do. So yeah, I think that you have to put in some time to go inside and to really look at where to go next. Sometimes when you're in a really sick place, it's hard because you don't always have the energy.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're here, you know, to coach, right? And to be able to say like, you know, you 100% can do this. You know, you 100% can. So it's about us standing by, holding space, I say sometimes, for, you know, questions, for, you know, directions, and, you know, being able to say, you got this, you know, and I need to. So
I love that. Well, since we're coming toward the end of the podcast recording, I like to ask this question to all of my guests. Do you have a history of hope from your practice that you can share with us?
I do. And it was fairly early into my practice. And I think, you know, this person came, and it was a young person, you know, in their 30s, and they came to me with a stage 4 cancer, and it was pretty intense. A young mom, and I was really pretty nervous because I was a young doc, and I was like, okay. I said, so I just went deep inside, you know, and I said, okay, you be grounded, she'll be grounded, right? You know, and we can do this together. And we went through a huge conversation, I think, about, you know, what this meant, you know, to the person, you know, like, what does this mean to you? And the hope that they had. And, you know, part of what I think about survival is, you know, do you want to, you know, where do you want to see yourself next? You know, like, do you see yourself 10, 20 years down the road? And, you know, she said, absolutely. I have a family. I have responsibility. You know, I said, but what about you? She's like, I want to live that life with those people. And I said, well, how do we make this happen? You know, so there goes my traffic signs. And so we start to do some deep research with her, you know, like other things that I can do, craniosacral, you know, some herbs, all of the modalities that I can give to her. And also who else she can reach out to, who can be this team that we're working with, you know, her acupuncturist. She told me she had her church, which we didn't talk about, but that was huge for her. It was a huge spiritual group that she had, you know, she had her MD and her oncologist, you know, so all of us, and we would check in with her. And I was nervous. I was seeing her monthly for a while, and I was nervous. I was like, I'm not seeing her. I'm not hearing from her for a little bit. Well, finally she came back in. Like, you know, this was a 6-month period. And she said, I just had my scan and I am completely free of cancer. And I said, holy, I was like, you know, for all of us, I'm like, that, you know, that is amazing that, you know, that power of us all really like putting our intention, you know, towards this, you putting your intention towards this, you know, was so lovely. And I still think about her and her children and like, you know, what that meant moving forward for her. So it was, you know, definitely a intense time, but one in which I saw the power of what, you know, all of that intention and all that work and that integration and that patient in the center, like putting in that, you know, everything they could. I mean, they were tired, right? You know, but they put in all the effort, and the other side came this lovely result. So, yeah, it was a great time.
I love that. And it just shows the power of empowerment, because it's really not about just telling a patient to do this. It's the question. And I will say, you know, from my own story, now 6 years ago with stage 4 cancer, is that there was a moment where I remember having to choose. And I remember a very clear question, like a really deep of, but do I really want this? Do I really want to live? Right? And it's almost like as if I had been given the choice to say, I'm giving up, but it's not that I'm giving up, I'm giving in the choice. Right. And I was, no, I want to live. Like, I remember this energy of like, no, I want to live. I just want to live a different life. So yeah, super powerful, super powerful. Well, Dr. Chrissy Davis-Allen, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really loved every single bit, every single experience that you shared with us. So thank you so much. Where can people find you? So you said Connecticut and Colorado, in person and remote. How do they find you? What's your website and so on?
It's drchrissyrnd.com. And thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to see you.
Do you have social media or anything like that?
My practice is called Symbiosis Natural Health. So I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram, and I'm working more on my YouTube. So I hope to have more content on there too for people to watch.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. I love it. Well, and everyone, if you are interested in learning more about Dr. Chrissy Davis-Allen, go on our website, go on our YouTube, and Instagram and Facebook. We'll put this in the show notes. And if you are in need of a rheumatologist, as always, we are accepting new patients. We are still currently accepting new patients. It's going to come down very soon because we don't want to be too busy so that we can offer the best care to our patients. So if you are looking for a rheumatologist, don't hesitate to come to the Unabridged MD, and you can schedule a first free consult, 15-minute free consult, and then we'll go from there. And with this, I will see you next week for another episode. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Take care.